Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another live stream. I have not been on the live stream the last couple weeks, as some of you may have noticed. It has been a busy last couple weeks, and so I had not made the live stream, so I'm glad to be back with you guys again. Now, let me finish reorienting my windows so I can actually see when questions come up in the chat. All right. QVision Media asks, will I catch you at NAB this year? The answer is yes. Yes, we will be at NAB this year. So for all of you who are going to NAB, we look forward to seeing you there. And please look us up and say hey, because we want to meet up and hang out with all of our YouTube friends. So, and on that note, if you don't have our number, 661-489-5000, pop that in your phone, and then when you're at NAB, shoot me a text and hit us up. So, yes. Okay, today we are talking. We're talking. That's what these streams are about. I'm going to talk, and hopefully you guys will pop things in the chat, in the comments, and we'll have a conversation instead of just me talking. Let's see here. Oh yes, I need to go live on Instagram. I completely forgot about that. Let's see here. I don't have my phone tripod anywhere close. Yeah, I'm not going to stick it right there. Cool. Well, I'm just going to go live on Instagram for a quick moment and tell everyone to come join us on YouTube. I'm not going to stay live on this Instagram thing very long. That's what we're going to do. So I'm going to do that real quick. At the beginning of our stream, to just tell everyone to go to our YouTube, which, yep, the link is already there in the story, so perfect. And we're just going to go live real quick with the camera facing the correct direction. That's always helpful. All right. Hey, everybody. We are live today on Instagram and YouTube. I'm talking today about 23 years in video production. Is it time to throw in the towel? Is AI going to take our jobs? Is gear the most important thing? All of these things is what we're going to be talking about on YouTube, on our live. I'm not going to stay on Instagram the whole time this time. So come over to YouTube if you want to watch the live. If you go to our story that we dropped on Instagram, that's what I'm talking to right now, Instagram. If you go to the story and hit the link in the story, it'll take you to the YouTube live. That's where we're going to be the rest of the time. So make sure that you go join us over there and check out the live that's going to be happening on YouTube, which is where all of my friends are at. All 592 of them who have tuned into this live stream. It's actually not that many, but, go join the party. Make it bigger. More people. Right? Okay. I'm going to end the Instagram. We're going to kick it off on YouTube with the actual stream instead of me just kind of yammering here for a second. So we're going to kick that off here momentarily. If you're on Instagram, go to the YouTube and watch the stream there. And I will say goodbye to the Instagram friends and see us on YouTube. Perfect. Not going to share that as a reel. That was quick and easy. Okay, so for my YouTube friends, you're the ones I'm really here for. So I'm not going to distract you with my Instagram shenanigans. Okay, 23 years in video production. And I feel like so many of us focus on the wrong things. There's so many questions that come up, right? I mean, like, having done this for 23 years, I had this entire list of things that I wanted to talk about, and I've got it condensed. So after 23 years, in 2026, is it time to throw in the towel on video production? Is AI going to take our jobs? Will we have jobs next year? Is gear the most important thing? Is buying the next camera what's going to level you up? for me, the things that I'm going to focus on, the things that I feel like have moved the needle in my business, and the things that are important to me after 23 years of doing this. The relationships I've built with other people, the business skills I've learned, learning the craft, right? Getting better at what I do, and also building my faith. Being in business as long as I have, there were so many ups and downs. There's so many roller coasters, and we'll talk about all that stuff. But having faith in the Lord who has sustained us in this work has just been critical for me. So let's actually jump in and talk about this. And we are going to go into some roller coasters. I'm going to talk a little bit about my story and my history, and the history of the business, and the time I ran the business off the cliff, and all of these things that you guys will be riveted in your seats to listen and hear. So let's jump in. AI. We'll just talk about AI real quick, right? Everyone's talking about AI. Everyone either loves it, they hate it, they're terrified of it. This wasn't even part of my script. I'm going completely off the reservation here with AI. But as I was thinking about the intro, I'm like, gosh, AI. Anyway, I love AI. I also hate AI, right? There's a love-hate relationship with AI. There's things AI is fantastic at. There's things that it's terrible at. But at the end of the day, to me, AI is a tool. I am not just a wrench. And so while AI might be able to wrench better than I can wrench on a theoretical level, it doesn't mean that I'm not needed to turn the wrench, right? So at the end of the day, I view AI as a tool. It is a tool that gives me greater leverage. And so it's a bigger wrench. And it's a big wrench that can turn itself. I can push a button and the wrench turns itself. But I still have to tell the wrench what nuts to tighten and what screws to take off and all these things. Like, I still have to be there to direct the AI. So for me, I'm not scared of AI taking my job. I'm not scared of AI taking all the video work. It's impossible for it to take all the video work. There's certain things that I think are in the danger zone. If you make pharmaceutical commercials, I think your job's in the danger zone because pharmaceutical commercials are generic. They're a montage of pretty pictures and a voiceover, and then a whole lot of side effects. And because they're so generic, that's the kind of thing AI is really good at. Just the amount of money it costs to make a nice, well-done pharmaceutical commercial versus the cost savings to just like pop that into AI and just have AI generate you good looking images. I'm like, to me, that's the kind of thing where that probably is going to go to AI. But if you do documentaries, if you are telling people stories, if it's raw, real, not raw and real meaning ugly, but raw and real meaning you're talking to people about something emotional and telling a story. Those things are going to be much harder to AI. And at the end of the day, the reaction I feel like the public has had to AI of just like hating it, I feel like is in our favor, right? Because people at some point realize I'm sick of being tricked by watching videos of a cat with a machine gun on a Ring doorbell. And I'm sick of watching things and going like, I don't know what to trust anymore because I don't know if it's AI or not as the average person, right? Like as pros, we can spot that stuff. But I've seen videos that I've been like, wow, dang. And then I'm like, wait a second, that's AI. So like I've been got for a few seconds, with some of these AI things, but you know what to look for and you start to figure it out. It's not all that someone has 5 fingers, like there's other things. Anyway, not to get on this giant digression about all of that because we're all in the weeds with this stuff. My point is, I don't think AI is going to replace video production forever. There are things that will be replaced. There are parts of video production that manual work will go away, just like when the Industrial Revolution came. I since the beginning of this whole AI thing, I have been very open about my take on AI is it is the next industrial revolution. We're creating factories, we're creating machines, and we're going to take what used to be one guy's artisanal thing that he spent, months crafting this thing, and now it's made in a factory. We're still going to have the thing. We still need somebody to run the factory. But yes, the guy who, did the old antiquated method that nobody wants anymore because they can get it faster, cheaper, better from the factory. Maybe not better, faster and cheaper from the factory. Great, like that guy lost. So yes, there will be those effects. There will be parts of video production that will go away. Hopefully video editing is one of them. For me, who hates video editing. For people who love editing, they're like, no. But I'm like, are there like really good like ACE editors? Are those guys going to go away? No. Like, those editors aren't going to go away because they're way better at what they do than any AI could ever be. So there's aspects, there's low-level jobs, there's basic repetitive jobs. Those are the things that AI is going to take. And we're all going to be grateful for it in the end. But just like with the Industrial Revolution, there's casualties, there's waste, there's problems. It's not perfect. It's messy. And so I think the same situation is there with AI. I don't know who's already seen the news about Sora, getting killed. But it's just like, these things are also unsustainable at some level. It costs massive amounts of money, resources, all kinds of things, not even trying to get into like environmentalism, but like there's so much that goes into these AI data centers. And, unless we're all going to run hamster wheels to power the data centers, like the power's got to come from somewhere. Anyways, so I'm not like terrified of AI, just to say that. Okay, so let's see. We got some people in the chat here. Q Vision, yes, we will see you at NAB. Cine Tech Reviews, hello from Cambodia. What's up? Thanks for watching and tuning in. Des Watson, hey, what's up, Josh? Hope you're well. Thank you. I am doing well. I'm over the man cold that canceled the other live stream. So a few weeks ago, I was planning to do a live stream, and then I got sick and I couldn't do it, and so I just put out like, hey, I got a man cold, I can't do it. And then the next week I was in Miami, Florida, and so I couldn't do the live stream. I was actually flying home from Miami, so I was on a plane all day Wednesday, so I couldn't do the live stream that day. And then the next week I was just so busy and tired and worn out and catching up from my trip in Miami that I last week didn't go live at all. I just totally was lazy and bummed out on you guys. So, but I'm back today. Why was I in Miami? I'm actually part of a mastermind group for video professionals. And so we had a mastermind retreat in Miami, which was fantastic. Just the opportunity to be in a room with, a dozen other video professionals who, take their craft seriously and they're excelling. And, some of them are far more successful in business than I am. I would say, the better majority of them are far more successful in business than I am, which is why I'm paying to be in this room around these people. And so, when you can speak to people who, are doing very large deals, when you can speak to people who have studios doing multiple millions of dollars, or even just $1 million compared to what your studio is doing, it's like when you talk to people who are levels ahead of you, just what you can learn is amazing. And then just building relationships, with people and becoming, friends and it's great. I really enjoy the mastermind group that I'm part of. Been in that for, March. I joined in 9 months or something, been doing this mastermind thing. Anyway, if something like that is something you're interested in, you can pay me $1,000 a month and I will, no. There's a group out there called Grow Your Video Business. They have a YouTube channel, they have a podcast. Ryan Coral runs that, and he's the one who runs this mastermind. He's got a great podcast. If you're just like looking for resources of like how to get better at your business, grow your video business, look up your podcast and YouTube channel, all that good stuff. He puts out a lot of great content. Yes. So I try not to be distracted by all the text messages coming in right now. They're not relevant to this show. Anyway, there's that. So that was a great trip in Miami. I learned a ton, and I will be implementing a lot of things in my business, as I've already started implementing things that have already like made progress just from being there 2 weeks ago. Anyway, and a lot of that stuff will be coming like as I like find what works for me. I'll be eventually bringing and sharing those things. So there's that. Let's see what's up in the chat. Yep, that's the way, getting around people who are ahead of you. That's why I'm here. Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad that I get to be in that position, right? Like after 23 years of doing this, I have learned a lot of things. Am I where I want to be? No. And that's one of the themes that'll come out, in everything I'm going to talk about. I'm like still in my introduction. Once I get into the meat of this stream, is I've always had this like desire to learn, to grow, to be better, and to get around other people who are better than me, and to always be moving forward in what I'm doing. But at the same time, there's tension's not the right word, but there's two sides of the coin, right? So on one side, you want to get better. On the other side, you also have to be content with where you are. But not the kind of contentment that leads to laziness, where you're just like, whatever. Not that kind of contentment. The kind of contentment that says, I'm okay where I'm at. But also I understand I'm not where I could be, and so I do want to continue growing. That kind of a contentment. Okay, let's actually move into the next segment here. Talent alone will not build your career. Talent alone will not build your career. This was one of the first lies that I believed as I began doing what I was doing. I'll talk more about like my whole story, but ever since I was 10 years old, this is what I've wanted to do. And so from 1997 to 2026, almost 30 years, I have been working on learning and improving my skills in video production. So yeah, been at this for a minute. 2003 is when I started working professionally. So that's what I consider the start of my career, where I was actually like making videos for money, working, freelancing with other production professionals, running my own business, etc. I'll jump into my story later. But I thought, if I just get good at what I do, then I'll have a great career. And there's truth in that, but that's not the whole truth. Pricing matters. Your marketing matters. Positioning matters. And you do have a lot of things that you have to learn the hard way. But if you want to be successful in business, you have to transition from being an artist to being a business owner. And that was after I started my business in 2012, right around 2017-ish is when, so about 5 years of being an artist, is when I made my first real shift into like business owner. Because I was a business owner, but I was still kind of an artist first in my mind. And that was when I learned to understand the concept of profit. And it was just such an eye-opening thing for me, because I had always thought of profit as that's the number on your P&L, your profit and loss statement. That's the number on your P&L that you want to be really small so that you don't have to pay the government taxes. And I'm not really sure where I learned or thought that that was the truth, but I was always like, small profit, good thing. And someone, actually, full circle, it was Ryan Coral, whose mastermind I'm in now. He had started a group called Video Sherpas, Studio Sherpas, and back in like 2016, 2017, and they were doing like, it was a coaching program and stuff. And so I was part of one of their pilot coaching programs. And that's where I learned this. I was like, what? Profit? I feel like I talk about this in like every other video I make, but I'm like, profit? Isn't that like bad? Isn't that like, you're not supposed to have profit. Profit means you have to pay taxes. And they're like, yeah, exactly. Because if you're paying taxes, you're making money. Wait, what? Like, I thought the whole goal of running a business was to not show profit so that you don't have to pay taxes. So you're supposed to make money, but then you spend all of it so that you don't have any profit left, so that you don't have to pay taxes, because you have to pay taxes on your profit. And it's like, Yeah, but then you don't have any money. Oh. Anyway, so that was like a for me, because no one had ever explained that to me. Like, I understood as a business, I needed to make money. I needed revenue. Like, I knew, oh yeah, we need revenue, as much revenue as we can get. But then I thought my job then is to spend as much of that revenue as possible so that I don't have to have a profit, so I don't have to pay taxes. Wow, was that wrong? Anyway, so I love paying taxes because paying taxes means I'm making profit. And profit is what we're after in business, right? Like, no real business exists to not make a profit, except non-profits, which are technically not a business. That's a whole separate issue. So transitioning from being an artist to being a business owner, that is a massive leap that we have to make as creative professionals. And pricing is one of those big things. When you go pricing, pricing has to tell people your value, right? Pricing is what lets people know, hey, I'm worth this. If you're working a minimum wage job, then your value is minimum wage. If you're doing something anyone can do, it's a minimum wage position. Now, if you're going to come in and do something that only 5 people in the world can do, your value is immensely higher because only 5 people in the world can do this. And so your price and your value go together. So you got to make sure that as you're pricing yourself, it's relative to value. Now, if there's 500 people in your town doing what you do, then you can only price yourself so high because a customer is only going to pay what it's worth. So how do you solve that problem? You start to do something that only 10 people in your town can do, or only you can do. And now your value has risen, your price can rise. So just being a guy with a camera is only worth so much. Anyway, so the freelance video world, you're limited to a day rate because they're going to compare and they're going to be like, everyone's day rate is, pick a number, $1,000. Easy math, right? Hope your day rate is not $1,000. Your day rate's $1,000, but this guy's $5,000. And everyone's going to be like, why would we pick him? We can get this guy for $1,000 because it's a day rate. It's a commodity, based thing. But if you're doing other kinds of work, if you have a specialty, this is my day rate, but I do live sports. I'm the guy that follows the golf ball. Okay, well, your day rate is much higher because only so many people in the world can do that. So a specialty. How you market yourself also is important to building your career. If you market yourself as, hey, I'm a guy with a camera, well, there's a lot of those. So how do you differentiate yourself in your marketing? How you position yourself? So talent alone will not build your video career. You have to have business, you have to have marketing, you have to position yourself correctly, and you have to learn some of these things the hard way. Hopefully you can learn from people who have gone before you, who have made mistakes. I love learning from other people's mistakes, but I'm also one of those people that tends to need to make the mistake to really learn it. I'm like, I know it up here, but I don't really know it. And so I still have to make mistakes. And one of those mistakes I will tell you about where I ran my business off a cliff and had to fire my entire staff. So that was lay them off because I couldn't pay them. Anyways, we'll talk about that story. So how did I get into, actually, before I jump into that, okay, what do we got here? Literally just viewed a video of yours teaching how to export multiple clips for delivery and doing that right now. Hey, nice. Appreciate that. Okay. So I started the production company with no money in the bank. Technically, I had no money. I had $2,000. I had $2,000 in the bank. That was all the money I had when I started my production company. Now, when you factor in the fact that since 2003, I've been working in video production. I had my own business. I freelanced with other people. I did everything I could to turn this into a business and to run it. So I was 16 when I started. 2003, I started filming weddings, corporate videos. I wasn't doing TV commercials at 16 of my own. I was working on other people's sets. I started calling around right? To other local, it was Yellow Pages status when I started this thing. And so I opened a Yellow Pages looking for videographer, whatever, anything with the word video. And I started calling people, hey, I'm Josh, I'm 16, I'm starting a video business. I'd like to, film all these things. I'm looking for some advice. Like, I don't even know what to charge. And a lot of these people would just hang up like, you're competition, I'm not helping you. One guy, his name was Bob West, answered the phone and he said, yeah, I'd love to chat. And he brought me to a wedding. It's like, hey, it was probably like hey, I'm shooting a wedding this weekend. Come help me out. I'll pay you a little bit. Okay, great. Maybe he didn't pay me at all. I don't even remember. This is so long ago. And so I came out and helped him on a wedding and learned a ton because he'd been doing it way longer than I had, because I had shot like 2 weddings at that point and I just had no idea what I was doing. And so I learned a ton from him. And then he's like, you know what? We have this group that gets together. And, we get together, I think it was every 2 weeks they got together. Or maybe it was once a month. I can't even remember. It was so long ago. It was a regular meetup of other video guys. And so he invited me and I came. And there was like 5 guys. Most of them were, kind of doing what we would call the old school production. This is early 2000s, so they're still doing it the way it was done in the 90s, good at it, what I would call broadcast video, because that was the definition of good video at the time. We weren't really transitioning yet to, people doing things in a cinematic way or, doing things in HD and all this stuff. Like it was still kind of early as far as that stuff. And so I came to this group and I met the guys in the group and, various people, would kind of like let me come help them on shoots and things. One guy did commercials and that was his thing, John Slagle. And and Bob became my 2 mentors. And Bob trained me on weddings and events. John trained me on commercials and corporate videos. And, I would come out on sets with him. I would help him out. I would, do all kinds of various jobs on set and just help. And then I'd go hang out in his office sometimes and I'd like pick up things about editing different things. I'd show these guys like goofy little videos I had made and like, cause I was like trying to make short films and things, and I'd show them and I'd get feedback and they'd be like, this is great. I remember, I made one film and I had, was showing them everything and they're like, look at your framing. You have way too much headroom. Like the guy's face is like in the middle of the frame. There's all this room on top of there. That's called headroom. You don't want that. That's bad. This is how you should do it. And I was like, oh, and like I learned like a basic framing rule from these guys, like so many things that I learned. And then you learn professionalism. You learn how to be on set, how to do, anyways, so much. So get a mentor, shadow somebody, get on set with people. If you are starting out, like that's invaluable. And so I had all of these experiences, right? And so fast forward, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been working in this industry for 10 years, shooting, I'd worked on high-end commercials. I'd worked on feature films. I'd worked on all kinds of things. And when I went to start my own business, again, because I had started my business, I went to work for someone, and then I came back to start my own business in 2012. After 10 years, I had $2,000 in the bank to show for my 10 years in this industry. And so when I started this company, the first company, Evermore Films, and then Story King Studios branched off from that later, but weddings and corporate video production, when I started this, I had $2,000 in the bank. And it was all or nothing. My motivation for starting this was, while I was working at the other production company, I'd actually met my wife, my girlfriend at the time. And, we've been dating for a while, and I was just like, okay, I want to marry this girl. And her and I were talking, like we were like, yep, we want to get married. And the production company I was working at was not going to work out. I was not able to make a livable wage there, and I needed to do something different. And so I said, I'm going to quit this job and go into a different industry. And so I did. I quit and I tried to go into IT for like a month and realized, yeah, I'm not as good of an IT guy as I thought. So then I tried to go into insurance sales, and that was great. I got my insurance license, learned how to do cold calling, and realized I don't want to do this. And so I started my own video business. And so I had nothing when I started this thing. And I basically took everything I had I invested in going to bridal shows because I knew on the wedding end, if I go to bridal shows, I can find clients and I'll have my prices low and I'll get clients and I'll get cash flow coming in, and then I can raise the prices and start climbing up. And that's what I did, and it worked. And it was scary because I wanted to build a life for a family. And so it was very scary and very risky, to go out and do that. But, I was also praying a lot, and it was just felt like, yes, this is what I need to do. And so I did. And it worked out. And it's been amazing. It's been quite a ride. It has been an absolute roller coaster. I'm running my own business for the last, 2012? It's 2026. 14 years? Wow. Yeah, 14 years. Didn't even stop and think about that. So doing that for the last, wow, yeah. Anyways, 14 years. Yes. Goodness. That's like a moment of reflection there. I didn't even stop and think about that. 2026. It's now been 14 years. So I started that with nothing and have been able to build a production company. And the roller coasters along the way have been very interesting. I've learned a lot, and it's been fun. It has been a fun journey. And I can't say this without saying entrepreneurship was not a new thing for me. I had run my own business from the time I was 16 until, I went to work for another production company. I wasn't good at it. I would say I was a freelancer. Like, I called it a business. I was a freelancer. I freelanced for clients. I freelanced for other video pros. I worked as crew on other people's sets. I had no way of getting clients. I just kind of hung my shingle out there and was like, oh, well, I paid for textbooks to get through college and things, and shot weddings for people, and just did any kind of odd video job that I could to make money, which was enough to feed my gear addiction, but that was about it. Okay, so as we're talking about roller coasters, let's just kind of talk about business, right? And what has the last 14 years looked like for me? So when I started, it was just me. And then I found another guy who I thought would be a great, fit to work together. And so he and I started working together. And it was sort of a partnership. Like, we never had any kind of a formal agreement, right? Like, everything was handshakes. So we were not formally partners. Like, he was technically an employee. But we worked it like a partnership because I just didn't know any other way to do anything. He did photography, I did video, and we were focused on weddings. And so it's like, cool, you do the photo, I'll do the video. And then we, go to the bridal shows and try to make a thing happen. Works for a time, and then it doesn't work. And so, that didn't work. And then I was back to being by myself. And over the years, I would hire on different people to help me, shoot events and stuff, and just to help me shoot, just second shooters. And I did that for a couple years, and it was like, someone would stay for, around for 6 months or whatever. And then, okay, well, thanks. That was fun. I'm going to go do my own thing now. Cool. And so I just over and over and over and over again. You train someone and so I have trained so many people over the years because I've had to, until I got to a point where it was time to start hiring employees. And my first employee was office staff, a secretary. And so there was a girl from my church who was like, what, I think, she could do this job. I had known her from high school. And so I was like, okay, my wife and I were like, oh, we know her. Like, she's good. We can trust her. And so, we brought her, and we were still working from home at the time. My wife and I had bought a house, after we got married. And so we had a house, and I had two rooms in the office. 2 rooms in the house were my office because we had no kids yet. And so I had one room for all my stuff and one room to work out of. And so, so we're sitting there with 3 desks. My wife had a desk, I had a desk, and Molly, our secretary, had a desk. And so there's 3 of us in this little 10 by 10 bedroom cranking out our production company. And so that was like that was what it looked like. And then after a while, it was like, okay, it's time to get an office. And so we went and rented a small office. And that was great. And while I'm at the office, I'm like, cool. So then I started like trying to hire other people. And we were at this office for a year, and I'm like, I probably went through 5 different employees in a year. Like our secretary had stayed on, but I went through different other people trying to like add videographers, add editors to the team. And so I'm like, it felt like every month it was like, oh, try the next person, try the next. At one point, I hired someone who I was related to. And after like 2 or 3 days, it was like, this clearly is not going to work out. And I had to figure out how to nicely fire a relative, which was entertaining. I actually had 2 relatives work for me, and had to let both of them go. So yeah, so many things that you learn running a business. Relationships, right? I talked about at the beginning, relationships, a lot of relationships. Then I hired a buddy from high school, and he stayed with me for a couple years. And then during that time, we outgrew the office we had. And so then we rented a warehouse and built a studio. And we were at the studio for 5 years. We had a sick wall and all this stuff. It was fantastic. Which brings me to the next part of the story. We had the studio. All this was going great. I had my buddy working for me. He was fantastic. And he was my buddy, Robert. So Robert was the first employee I had who I was like, you're actually like at my skill level. Because everyone else I had hired before then was like more entry level, and I was doing so much training, trying to get people up, to par, to be where I had been. I'd also gone through a pile of remote editors trying to find because I very quickly, after a couple of years, I was just like, okay, I have to offload editing. If I'm going to grow a business, I can't be sitting here editing because it's just forever to edit things. And I was actually fairly fast as an editor. And so that was actually one of the difficulties of replacing myself, was finding someone who was fast and good, because I was fast and good. And it was like, man, I hire these people and they'd be so slow, or they wouldn't be good, or they'd be slow and bad. Anyway, so much pain and suffering to get to. Robert was probably like the 10th person I had hired at that point. And this is like 2017, I think he came, 2016, 2017, I think he came to actually work for me. And I was just so glad to like have a buddy, on staff. Like, cool. Yeah. And so we, it's fun to work with friends. And so we had a great time. And yeah, so we're at the studio. And it's like, how do I edit this in my head as I go? Because there's just so much. Trying to keep it relevant for you guys. So we're at the studio, and one day another guy walked in, with a resume, looking for a job. And it's like, I looked at his resume and I was just like, man, we should grab this guy. And so we did. We hired him. And I spent the next 3 months training him and just getting him like good. And it was like, he's good. Yes. And so now we had a crew of 3. And so 3 of us, and we were knocking projects out, and everything was going great, and we were getting bigger and bigger clients. And one day I opened up the bank account and realized we had no money left. And the feeling of that was one of the most unpleasant feelings I've ever had. Because I'm like, I've built this business. So this was in 2018. I've built this business. We've built this studio. I've built this team. We have a great reputation. We're doing fantastic work. We have happy clients. Why is there no money in the bank? And it probably took me a day to kind of process through and like figure out what was going on and what are we going to do about it. And I realized what happened was I had spent the last 3 months plus managing my team, training our new hire, making sure that everything was excellent. What I had not done was sell. I had not gone out and looked for business. I was not doing business development. I had taken my eye off of the ball of the business and focused my eye on the craft and the team and training the team. And so I had to call a team meeting and say, hey guys, I'm sorry. There's no money. This is your 2-week notice. I don't have any way to pay you guys beyond the next 2 weeks. And I had to let them go. It sucked. That was no fun at all. And like, I had to lay my buddy Robert off. And that sucked even more because it's like, he's my buddy, you know? And it's like, man. Anyway, when you go through something like that in your business and you run off a cliff like that, it just the way your heart just drops and what you have to go through in doing that is just no fun at all. We just had our first baby, 2018. Our first kid was born. And so it was like everything was great. I took off, for paternity leave, whatever, cause we just had our baby and it's just like, and we're done. So that was hard. Cause it's like, all right, cool. Newborn at home and the business is out of money and I've got a studio to pay for. I've got 2 employees I have to let go, and I got to figure out how are we going to make rent? How are we going to, pay for our house? How are we going to buy food? How are we going to feed this baby? How are we going to do all these things? And so it's like my wife and I, we just hit the deck in prayer, and then went, what do we need to do? And the $200 video specials came out the door like crazy because it was like, we just need pure cash. Doesn't even matter if it doesn't even matter. Like every person we know, can you give me $200? I will make you a video. Like I don't even care what my hourly rate is on this thing. I just need cash right now. And so we were running specials. We were just, I was working 1,000,000 hours solo because it was just me at that point. It was down to me, and we worked our butts off. My wife and I so hard that we actually made it work that year. And we saved the business. I say we saved the business. The truth is the Lord saved the business. When you go through something like that, you realize like human effort is one thing, but the divine help from the Lord, like that's what makes it matter. Because I've had to learn this lesson so many times in business. In Proverbs, it says the horse prepares for the day of battle, but the victory is from the Lord. And that is the truth. We in our human responsibility, we do what we can do. We do our best. We do the things we're supposed to do. We sow the seeds, but the Lord grows the harvest. And so we have to do our part. God is not going to bless us if we just sit on our butts and do nothing. But we also have to recognize that whatever does come comes from Him, good or bad. And so when my business hit that spot, that was a major point of recalibration for us, because we just never hit a low like that. Being in business, like we did a lot of weddings, and so it was seasonal. And so like it'd be great in the spring, and then the summer would be slim, and then it'd be great in the fall, and then the winter would be slim. And it was just this seasonal, cycle. And every summer, we'd end up on our knees like, all right, Lord, we don't know where next month's money's coming from. Please supply. And God would always supply. Anyway, so full acknowledgement that the Lord is who saved our business, in that time. And we worked our butts off. And the Lord blessed that. So that was 2018. That was the big dip. Coming out of 2018, it was me solo for about 2 years. And I just would bring people on, on a project basis just to, help, shoot or sometimes help edit projects and stuff. And shortly after that, in 2018, is when I met Mike. And he came in as one of those project-based, help me shoot this, help me do that kind of guys. 2019, I hired him a little more for a few things. 2020, the pandemic hit, and we actually had a fantastic year because all the businesses were like, we need videos. And so it was actually a good year for us. It was our best year to date, funny enough. And 2020 was when I started hiring Mike again and again and again and again, project. And Mike had his own video business. And it was just over and over and over and over. And he and I just started talking and stuff. And ultimately, he joined my team in 2020. And so Mike has been with me for, over 5 years now. And so that was the next phase of the team. 2022, we brought on an intern who we then ended up hiring. And so we had 3 of us, which is great. Shout out to Carson. Thank you for all the fun times in the office. And so that was fun, a good time in the studio. And then we had brought on Emily in 2023. Yeah, 23. We brought her on to help more with marketing and stuff. And then in 2023, we went off another cliff. And I knew with what I learned in 2018, it was just like, wow, what an idiot. Like, how did this guy run his business off 2 cliffs? And so in 2018, I took my eye off the ball of sales. And so I was like, I will never do this again. And I didn't. And so in 2023, it wasn't that I had no idea that we were out of money. It was all year I watched the bank account do this. We started the year with like a $50,000 reserve in the bank, and it was like, we're in great shape. We're going to bring on an extra person. We're probably going to buy, some new gear. Maybe we'll buy a red camera. Maybe we'll buy whatever, cinema camera. We'll do something. And then it's just never, then the year just never went. It was like we had a couple great projects at the beginning of the year, and then just all year. We just drained money all year. And the entire time I was like, what do we do? What is it? This is this, and try this and try that. Like, I was trying things all year, trying to do everything I knew to do to save the business. And praying a lot, obviously, too. And none of it was working. And finally, at the end of the year, we had to let, everyone go except Mike, and we had to close the studio. And that was a very difficult year for me. Part of our agreement, we were in a lease that went beyond the time I needed to be out of the studio. I had another year left on the lease, and I was just like, I got to get out of the studio. And so I had to negotiate, with the landlord to get out of it and all that stuff. And part of the negotiation was we had to tear stuff out because we had built offices and we built a studio and a sick wall. We built all this stuff, and so we had to tear it out. And so it's like just this feeling of like, because my dad's a contractor. We built all that stuff with our own hands. And so you're like adding insult to injury of like, now we're tearing out with our own hands the things that we built with our own hands 5 years ago in this space. And so just the emotions were high, and it was rough for me. But we've rebuilt since then. And we closed the studio. We went remote, and I bought a grip truck. And that has been the best thing that we've ever done, because the studio never made us money. 5 years in a studio, it never made me money. We had one client. I take it back. We had one client for about a 6-month period who paid, for the studio, for that year. But other than that, studio never made money. Rarely did people come and shoot. We used it and we did all kinds of stuff in it, but it never made money. And I tried renting it out. I tried bringing photographers in. I tried doing all kinds of, it just never made money. So I'm not a fan of studio ownership. If you want an office, that's fine. But studios, it's a whole other thing. If it works for you, it works. It never worked for me. So there's a serious roller coaster in all this stuff. That was really long. Hopefully that was enjoyable for you guys. Let me check on the chat here. I can see there's all kinds of things going on. Before I keep going to the next section here. At the beginning of the journey, developing the skills. Heck yeah. Yeah, setting up a business is overwhelming, but it's worth it. It's good. It's good stuff. How can you find out more about being part of the mastermind? Great question. So if you look up Grow Your Video Business, that's a podcast run by Ryan Coral with a K, and that is he runs the mastermind, and they let people in like once a year. So you just have to kind of get in line. You can get on the wait list. Anyway, so yeah, if you want to get on that mastermind, it's fantastic. I've been praying so much. Amen. I'm like, people who are business owners who don't believe in the Lord, I'm just like, how do you do it? Like, cause goodness, I would be an absolute stress ball if I didn't have the Lord to rely on for this. So God is good. God is good. Okay, let's jump to the next segment here. My relationships built my career more than skills did. And that is something that, as a young filmmaker, I did not understand. I thought that it was all about how good I was at what I did. And so I focused all of my energy from like the time I was 10 to probably the time I was 20, 25, somewhere in my early 20s, I finally kind of woke up a little bit. But over 10 years of my life, because, and I say that starting when I was 10, because when I was 10, I was like reading cinematography textbooks. Like, I was a nerdy 10-year-old. When I was like, I'm interested in video, I was like, I'm interested in video. I was a very nerdy 10-year-old. 12, I'm reading camera manuals for fun at 12 years old. Like, absolutely. Like our family would go on vacation and I would bring a camera manual and I would read it cover to cover. When I say I was a nerd and I was a weird kid, I really was. But those things helped me grow. I was absolutely obsessed with making videos, like to a detrimental degree. I was obsessed. My parents would be like, hey, it's time for dinner. I'd be like, all right, I'll be right there. And it's like an hour later, hey, your dinner's cold. Oh yeah. Just absolutely obsessed. Anyway. So the thing I did not learn until much later in life is relationships matter way more than skill. And I would watch other people around me who I'm like, they suck as a video guy, do way better and get these projects. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, I'm way better than them. Why are they And I learned at some point that it's about relationships. Your networking, your relational skills, having mentors, building a community, being part of a community, being part of your community, like all of these things matter more than being good at video. And it took me a long time to understand that, which is why I'm a big proponent of building a community, being part of other film. That's why I love this YouTube community. All 11 of you watching right now. I know hitting a live stream is always interesting, especially when I talk for a really long time. I go way over time, which I'm totally going to do today. I'm like looking at the clock. I'm like, it's 11:57 and I am halfway through my notes. So I may just end up breaking this into two parts because there's a lot of stuff. Goodness. Having a community, I had that with that video mentor group when I was starting out, and that lasted for a year or two, and then it finally kind of fell apart. I don't know how long they'd been doing it before I, came in, but I was totally like, I'm the 16-year-old kid, and everyone else in the room is, in their, 40s and up. So I was the kid in a room full of old guys, as a 16-year-old. You're like, oh, you're 40, you're old, like now I'm like, I'll be 40 next year. 40's not old. I'm just getting started. But that mentoring was massive for me. And so I understand the value of community, not only mentors, but also peers. And so about 2 years ago, I started a video group because no one had done it. And I'd mentioned it to people over the years and stuff. And so I started Video Pals. And that is a group where once a month we get together with local video pros. So if you're watching this, if you are in the Kern County area, if you're in Bakersfield, if you're in Central California, if you're within a 2-hour drive of Bakersfield, where we're at, come to Video Pals. Hit me up. We've had people drive in from Fresno. We've had people drive in from Visalia. It's cool to get together and just hang out for an hour, 2 hours with peers, guys who understand video, guys who know, because how many of us don't have a bunch of friends who do video? And it's like, who do you talk with? Who do you check gear with? Who do you bounce ideas off of? Who do you, think like, I was thinking about this thing on my pricing. I'm just not sure. Like, who do you get ideas from? And so that's what Video Pals is. There's no agenda. We just get together for lunch once a month, second Friday. And it's fantastic. We love it. Building the relationships, because of Video Pals, we have gotten big jobs. Because of Video Pals, we have been able to help other people in their productions. Because of Video Pals, we have found people to help us on our productions. Because of Video Pals, we have friends who do video. Because of Video Pals, when we see other video guys in the community, there is no sense of like, ooh, get off my turf. Like, there's none of this stuff. When we see other video pros, it's like, hey man, what's up? Last week? Yeah, last week was Video Pals. And we're sitting down to lunch at a restaurant. A dude rolls up with a Pelican case. We all watch him roll in. We're like, okay, who's the guy with the Pelican case? And he goes and he sits down, and I look over the Pelican case, and it's a red branded Pelican case. And I'm like, and so we're talking. We're just, does anyone know this guy? No one knows this guy. We're like, who is this guy? And so, give him a couple minutes, and he's just sitting there. I get up, I go over, I introduce myself. Hey, what's up? Oh yeah, I'm Brandon. Oh yeah, I'm local. What? Like, dude, like literally, we're having Video Pals right now. It's like it's a lunch where all the video pros in town get together. And he's like, what? Like, he didn't know about us, we didn't know about him, and we live in the same town. And he's like, oh yeah, I've been making videos for like 20 years. What? Like, never heard of you. So, and we love this, right? We're just continuing to connect and build this network and expand. Anyway, so Video Pals is amazing. If you don't have anything like that in your area, please start it. It's so easy. It is so simple to start something like that. You just invite people, and you just say, hey, we're going to have lunch this day at this time at this location. Come. Put it out on social media. Tell people you probably know one person. You might know a few people. Great. Tell the people you know. Tell them to tell people they know. It grows. It builds. It's amazing. Do it. Another reason this whole relationship thing is also why going to something like NAB or Cinegear or whatever conference for video production is in your area, because when you go there, it's not about seeing the gear. Like, that's great. It's not about getting deals, which is also great. It's about building relationships. It's about building brand partnerships. Where else do you get to go talk directly to the manufacturers? Where do you get to go talk to this new startup company out of China that is building production carts? Not a startup company, like they're an established company in the photography space, but they're new to the video space. And so you can go to a company like this and be like, hey, Salins, I like this cart you have. I've never seen this before. This is new. Yeah. And then you talk to the guy who designs the cart because he's there at the show. And you talk and you figure all this stuff out. And you're talking to the owner of the company because he's there at the show. And you build relationships and you make deals. And not only do you make deals on buying things, but you make brand deals. You build relationships. And we saw the opportunity of what was going on with the Salins cart, and we bought one. We got a good deal on it. We made a relationship with the company, and we were part of the feedback loop for redesigning their Generation 1 prototype production cart. And now they have the second version that's been out for over a year, and we have the second one, and we got a third one. Like, you build on these relationships, and there's just so many benefits. Obviously YouTube, like, we've gotten hired off of YouTube. There's so many projects. There's probably $50,000 in business that we can attribute to the YouTube channel. Like, I've never stopped to count it up. I should probably do that sometime. But I'm like, that's probably 50 grand we can account to the YouTube channel. Directly or indirectly, because of what we've done with the YouTube channel. So that is an amazing thing. Relationships are so important because it doesn't matter how good you are at video. if you're awkward or if you're a jerk or you have no relational skills whatsoever, it's going to be hard to get people to hire you. So you have to have both of those things. Okay, let's see. What else we got in the chat? I keep thinking about what I want to achieve, and then I think I'm going to need some help from a higher power to achieve this. Amen. Amen. We do. We do need help. This is hard. It is hard to build a video business. It's even harder to build it by yourself, which is why community. Okay, I'm skimming. Okay, I'm looking at my outline here, being like, can I cover this in a reasonable time, or should we just segment this over to next week? Because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more segments. Yeah, we ended up covering five of my segments. It is 12 o'clock. We've been streaming for an hour. What I don't want to do is race through all these things and make it not valuable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to open up for questions now. And I'm going to bump the rest of this to next week's live. And we're going to pick it up. We'll do part 2 for next week's live. So while I'm waiting for questions to come in, I'll just say a few things. Achieving mastery in filmmaking is a lifelong pursuit. No matter how long you've been doing this, in whatever, I say filmmaking, in whatever aspect of this, if it's corporate video, if it's a wedding video, if it's making movies, if it's making documentary, whatever section of this you want to be part of, it's never ending. There's no end. It's doctors are practicing medicine because they're always learning. And I'm like, I don't want someone to practice medicine on me. I want someone to know what they're doing. Whole different issue. But in the same way that you say that, like, I'm practicing the art of video production and filmmaking. And I've been practicing it for 23 years. And I will continue to practice it for the foreseeable future, unless God directs me in a different direction. So it takes a lifetime to learn this stuff. And this is why some of the best cinematographers, for example, have white hair, because it's a lifetime achievement to really get good at this. Like, this is not a field or a craft that you can like take a 2-year program and just know everything about. Like, great, that's an entry point. But that's not enough to build a career on what you learn just in that period of time. There's so much to it, and it takes time to learn, to assimilate, to implement. But you always have to be a student, right? Like you always have to be learning. So you need to have a mindset of constantly learning. You have to understand like what things are fundamental truths in this craft and what things are trends. You have to be able to separate those, because the fundamental truths will stay the same. Light bounces off an object, enters a lens, exposes your medium, your sensor, your film, whatever, creates an image, which you then shape the light, you craft, you make the image, and then like these are fundamentals, right? And that's what's fundamentally wrong with AI. There's no light. It's just trying to reconstruct the end result without any of the physics. Anyways, not talking about AI right now. Trends are styles. Trends are what's popular, what's in fashion. Trends come and go, and then recycle, and they come and they go, and then they come again, and they go again, and they come again, and they go again. Like, trends are a separate issue from the craft of filmmaking. So you have to know how to separate those two things. Like, cool, Jason Bourne, shaky cam, cool. All right, Jason Bourne, shaky cam, not cool. Steady cam, cool. Steady cam, not cool. Like, these are trends. Teal and orange color grading, cool, not cool. Trends. Craft of filmmaking. Separate those two things. The timeless elements of the craft of filmmaking are timeless. And those are the ones I'm always striving to learn. I'm not big on trends and chasing trends. That's great that's popular right now. And you want to be aware of these things, obviously. Like, you don't want to make things... You don't want to say that something that's a trend is part of a core aspect of filmmaking, and then you want to say this stays forever, because that's a trend and that's going to go. So you have to separate those two things. And also just understand the standards, and standards change, right? Like standard definition, high definition, 4K, 8K, pick a number. Like these things do change over time. So to the comments. Yeah, you should break it up probably. For sure. That's what I'm doing. Great. Well, since we don't have a bunch of questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this guy up, and we'll pick up next time with what we got. Just to wet your whistle, we'll be talking about from VHS tape editing to raw footage and AI. We'll be talking about me as a 10-year-old kid obsessed with camera manuals and all kinds of other things. Talking about how I drove a cheap car so I could buy gear. Talk about my first feature film, my first real production job. Talk about the fact that if you're starting now, you have better gear than I ever did and why that matters. And again, we'll just talk more about trusting God in building a career like this because, wow, that is key. And a few other things. So we'll come back for some of that stuff next week because I'm not going to just keep going and going forever and have you guys all leave because, this is you're taking your lunch break or whatever it is. And like, you got to get back to doing productive things, making money, right? Because that's what this is about. Okay. We had a question come in. KWD Productions. Do you desire to produce narrative film projects or is your career focused primarily on corporate gigs? That is a great question, which I've answered on other live streams. I actually shot my first narrative project in 15 years in January. So I do have a growing desire to get back into narratives. Narrative was my first passion. I have a desire to get back into narrative and documentary, specifically making Christian films and Christian documentaries, because I think the need is just so great to clearly proclaim the gospel through every means necessary. And film is the means I have at my disposal. So for me, that's something that I'm passionate about. It's hard to make an income stream and support a family in that. So that's something that I'm trying to figure out. Like, how can I feed my family while making Christian content so we continue to make corporate videos and things? If there was a faucet that I could turn on that said, we've got money to just make Christian videos, I would turn that faucet on. I don't know where that faucet is. So if you guys know where that faucet is, let me know. Anything about the steps of creating the production company from scratch? Yeah, we can talk more about that next time as well. Yeah, there's a lot. I'll probably do a little more Q&A next time too. We just kind of, there was just so much to talk about. I ran kind of long today, so I don't want to, keep going too much, but creating a production company, there's a lot that goes into it. You got to figure out your structure. You got to figure out your goal, your purpose. You got to figure out, what do you offer? What are you going to do? What are you going to sell? Who are you talking to? Who are you offering it to? Are you going to niche down? Are you going to, be on a specific industry or a specific type of video? Like there's so much. How are you going to price yourself? On pricing, I do have a pricing calculator. Let me see. I don't know if I put the link in the description for this. Let me look at my description. Is it in here? No, it's not. I have another video on my channel about the pricing calculator. You can go watch that, all about like how to figure out your pricing. So that's super helpful if you're at that stage of your production company where you still need to like optimize your pricing. So that's super helpful that I've put together with all the years I've been doing this. There's so much that goes into a production company. You also have like all of the like legal formation steps, which I can only speak to what you do in California. Because every state has different things and every country has different things. The principles, I think, largely apply across all areas. Like you have to go get some form of a business license to be able to do business. If your business is big enough, you're going to want to form some type of a corporation, which will be beneficial for taxes and other things. There's different types of businesses, different types of corporations, and you have to look at all the specific tax laws and talk to a CPA and like what's beneficial for you at the stage of business you're at, etc. Like my CPA was like, hey, don't form a corporation, don't make an LLC until you're like making like $80,000 a year, because anything less than that, it's gonna cost you more money than it's gonna make you. And so once your business can show a much higher revenue at that point, then you can do it. Anyways, there's so much. Very good. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching. I am going to cut this one short for the day. Short. It's been an hour and 15 minutes. That's not short. But we're going to go ahead and call it for the day. So thank you guys for tuning in and watching. Hope this was valuable and beneficial to you guys. And we'll be back next week. Same time, same place, same topic. Continuing this topic and diving into all the other elements of what goes into the production company, and 23 years, what I've learned, and why I'm not scared that AI is going to end my career. It'll, of course, it'll end certain tasks, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but not the career. So, thank you guys for watching, and have a fantastic rest of your day and week, and we will see you guys in the next one. And I have a button I'm supposed to hit. Goodbye.